Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Random Redshirt podcast. I am one of the hosts, Zach, and the other host is Chris. What's up, buddy?
Hello, my dear friend Zach. So great to see you. It has been a while. So sorry it has been a while. Hello, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us around the world and the interwebs and the solar system. And it's great to see you, Zach. And perhaps Atlas 3I is picking up, will pick up this like transmission and listen to us. And, who knows? The,
I mean, that's
yeah.
assuming it's not a natural phenomenon, right?
Yeah, assuming it's not a natural phenomenon and, and
I still
yeah.
think it's a natural phenomenon, but I guess we'll find. I guess we'll find out, won't we? Unless for some reason the Vulcans are arriving earlier than in 2060 something, right?
Oh,
So
indeed. And first contact comes earlier.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, so it's funny. It's funny you say if it comes earlier, right? We've been talking about Section 31 over a number of weeks and months, and that would be kind of mirror universe Section 31-ish kind of stuff that would happen there. So
Oh, indeed. Indeed, it
yeah.
would be. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow.
It really would be. Well,
Yeah.
welcome everybody to the Random Redshirt podcast. Thank you for joining us here. We very much appreciate it. If this is your first time, be sure to go on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, your favorite podcast platform, or YouTube to find us there. Find video and audio versions of our episodes, as well as any of our posts and updates and so forth. Yeah. So we're actually jumping back, Chris, to wrap up, put a little bow on our spotlight series of Section 31 as we look at the final episode, the final Section 31 centric episode in the legacy Star Trek shows. And this is Enterprise's Terra Prime. And on the next episode, we are finally going to bring to you our unfiltered, unfettered review and discussion of the Section 31 movie because you and I, Chris, have just watched the movie and we have some thoughts.
We do. We have some thoughts indeed.
Yeah.
We that we shall share.
Yeah. And if you've been
Yeah.
following along with us, you guys know that we've mentioned many times that this Section 31 Spotlight series, which we put on a hold for a couple of months while we went through the Star Trek Strange New Worlds season 3 and did an episode by episode review of that, and all episodes you can find and check out on our YouTube channel and your favorite podcast platform. So we're actually going back to finish the Spotlight series now that Strange New World season 3 is complete. And it's been a minute since we talked about Section 31, but in those previous episodes, we did mention that this Spotlight series was going to culminate in our look and finally watching the highly controversial, I would say, movie that is Section 31 starring Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting going through Terra Prime on our review of this Enterprise episode and then wrapping that up and then as we transition into the Section 31 movie because I think as we've watched these several episodes throughout Legacy Star Trek regarding Section 31, you and I have kind of formulated this idea of what Section 31 as an organization means to us. Like
Right.
our personal kind of tastes and what we think it would be. And then in a movie um, or a series that explores Section 31, what would we expect there? So
Right.
yeah, it's gonna be really cool to explore.
Yeah, it's gonna be something.
It's gonna be
But
something.
it's gonna,
It's going to be something.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
my understanding was with the Section 31 movie that it was originally pitched as a show, as a series, and then that got changed to being a movie, which the movie was only an hour and a half, and I'm like,
yeah,
well, we'll talk about that in the next
yeah.
episode. We've got a lot of thoughts, but on this episode, we are going to finish up the episodes of Section 31 here in the Legacy Star Trek series with Enterprise's episode Terra Prime. Now, I know there's some Section 31 stuff that's interwoven throughout season 2 of Discovery, but just for the sake of not having this spotlight series go on for 6 years or anything like that, we're not going to cover that. We're going to jump from Enterprise into the Section 31 movie. And honestly, Chris, I think we've seen a lot and enough for us to come up with expectations and ideas of what we think should be in the movie prior to watching this Section 31 movie just from the episodes we get across DS9 and Enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually really like the way Section 31 is portrayed in in this episode of Enterprise Terra Prime
Yes.
because they are not, I mean, it's not a main focal point for
Right.
sure. Like there's just this short moment of that is Section 31-ish, but the way it's portrayed is like they're a group and they're an organization that is in the background but that has very, very important kind of resources and knowledge that they can share to help point uh, the direction of events the way that they want the direction of events to flow. And so I liked that a lot. And of course, I really liked that Malcolm is involved. And I just think like Malcolm as a character is just the perfect. I know that I think about it more. He's just like the kind of a I think he'd make a great Section 31 agent if he were going into Section 31. It's his thing. I think he really kind of likes that. I think he likes it more than he wants to admit.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was a great choice, great character to do that. There were some other characters on board Enterprise that if that had been the character that the writers chose to be kind of this person working with Section 31 would have been a bigger surprise, I think, than having
Yeah.
Malcolm do it. But I do think Malcolm was the right choice for the character to be involved with Section 31.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Like he's the type of character where like people are trying to figure out what he likes, right? Like a little bit about what his past is and um he's just kind of that type of person. He's a little bit mysterious in that he just doesn't always share what his tastes are.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. So, all right, Chris, let's jump into this Star Trek Enterprise Terra Prime, written by Judith Reeves Stevens and Garfield Reeves Stevens and Andre Bormanis, directed by Marvin Rush. And this is picking up where Demons left off. This is a two-parter, which we had mentioned this the last time when we did talk about Demons, where we left our Spotlight series of Section 31, and that is that it was highly interesting that Enterprise had this big kind of two-parter right before the series finale. And I'm trying to think. I don't know if another Star Trek series had a quote unquote traditional multi-part episode right before a series finale. There may have been, but off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank. I think, there might have been some continual story arc stuff, but this is a true like two-parter kind of wrapped up in a single story arc.
Yeah. This was this is an excellent two-parter. Like I find myself really enjoying this episode. Uh that that mechanism of having the baby clone of T'Pol and Trip was really good. Um because that explores like I mean that continues their relationship more. And then that directly goes to Terra Prime's like idea of like not wanting to contaminate in quotes the human race. Um, and Peter Weller was great in there as the antagonist. I think he did a fantastic job. Um, and then you had a little bit of intrigue in there with the Starfleet like intelligence operative. I forget her name, but you you think she's a traitor or you think she's working for Terra Prime at first, but then you realize, oh no, she's actually for Starfleet intelligence. I think this is the second time I watched this episode, so I was coming to it like fresh again because I didn't remember what was happening too much, but found myself like really, really enjoying this. And then um since it'd been a while since I watched Enterprise episodes, like really enjoying uh the set pieces and the ship designs and the bridge designs and kind of the tactile feel like of everything, much less gloss than everything else we've been
You love
seeing.
the gloss, Chris. You love the gloss. What are you talking about?
So so I was like, oh, I really am enjoying this. Like and you got to see this really cool um away mission like with Captain Archer, and Malcolm and the Doctor and Travis, like like flying. So that was great.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. This episode was very well done, I thought, and you're right, it is a great two-parter. Um, Peter Weller really was a perfect choice for this role as John Frederick Paxton, who is this guy, this kind of this self-proclaimed leader of Terra Prime. Um, he has heavy influences from a, a world leader, I believe that I think was it during they mentioned it during Demons. I think during World War III or just after World War III and the way in which Earth was rebuilt and this kind of heavy hand, you know, no nonsense type of leader. But some looked at, history looked at that guy as not a good person. And Paxton looks at him in opposite way. And there's an idea that he mentioned something in this episode, something to the effect of like, history being the judge of people and so forth. And, he has this kind of, I think, a little bit of a hero worship of that particular individual. But this episode picks up and begins on the bridge of the Enterprise where we see uh, John Paxton
Mhm.
doing a global wide or a system wide transmission where he states that the citizen soldiers, so he's making them militaristic, the citizen soldiers of Terra Prime will act to protect you against the most dangerous enemy that humanity has ever faced, talking
Mhm.
about aliens, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of this stems from, we mentioned this before, a lot of this probably stems from the Zindi attack and the fact that Zindi almost destroyed the Earth and everything. So, from that perspective, you can understand why he's fearful. But on the other hand, you say, well, yeah, but he's an extreme xenophobist and he's portraying a stereotype across all these different alien species, which is just not accurate and not right to do because there are many alien species that are great, and they're working and trying to establish and found the Federation, and he's trying to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. So I think this was really intelligently done because the um the past seasons of Enterprise went through that Xindi arc,
Yeah,
where Xindi devastated Earth, killed like so many people, so many humans, and so it was natural that after that event, like you have this group, Terra Prime, like come up because now they're coming up. It's born out of fear, right? So there's a lot of xenophobia there, and so Peter Weller's character is trying to, uh, in his mind, he's trying to save the people from the threat of aliens and xenophobia, and wanting to rise up the um that just rise up humanity, rise up humans, saying them as being most important.
yeah, and I didn't like the fact either though. So Paxton then takes an image of the baby of
Hmm.
Trip and DePaul's baby and puts it on the screen.
Yeah.
So now everybody is seeing this, right? And so you have all the people that either are sympathizers of Terra Prime or are part of Terra Prime see this and they look at this as an abomination. They look at it as an enemy, all sorts of things that are just obviously not true. And it just further fuels the flame of what Terra Prime is trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah. Does indeed. There's a scene in this episode where he acknowledges Captain Archer. He goes, "The man who delivered us from the Zindi." Like, so I really liked that line because he acknowledges, like, oh, like Archer's here. Archer's kind of the savior of humanity from the
Right.
Zindi kind of attack, and he acknowledges that. So I was like, oh, that was tying those kind of themes together. I would think it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Archer asks Reed to scan Paxton's ship for Vulcan life signs so they can try to figure out where T'Pol and the Infant are and everything.
Hmm.
And I think it was kind of interesting that Paxton goes, well, we're going to give everybody, we're devoted to the protection of life, right? Like, yeah, no, you're not, but we're devoted to the protection of life in all its diversity. So the next 24 hours, everybody has safe passage out of the solar system. Like, wow, dude, that's real big of you. Make it see he's being deceptive and manipulative here, right? He's basically trying to make it look like, hey, we care about everybody, we care about all life, so we're not going to do anything. You guys have a day to get out of here and leave, but after that, it's game on. And he tries to play himself to be this good guy, this person who's trying to do the right thing in his mind, but in reality, it just doesn't work that way. And so I think that was a good point you made. Like in his mind, he can justify what they're doing, right? He can justify the movement. He can justify why they have their concerns about alien life on Earth. But obviously, as an audience, we know that he is just way off his rocker.
Yeah. Yeah, he certainly is. And so in this episode he's gained control of the Verderon array. I think I'm saying that right. The Verderon array on
Yeah.
Mars, which is used normally to deflect like asteroids and objects like out of the solar systems. We would use it to deflect like Atlas 3I if we were headed for there, right? Totally would.
I mean, maybe we
Maybe.
don't want if it's the Vulcans, Chris, we can't deflect them away. We need to welcome them.
Ah, very true. Very true. Yes. And so he has turned so his idea is to now use the Verderon array as a weapon to aim it at Starfleet headquarters
Hmm.
to destroy the symbol of like what he believes is perpetuating all of this like inter-alien integration that he does not want, that he is totally against. So yeah,
Yeah, well, and there's some fallout here too by him taking control of the Verderon array. Uh, they mentioned that over the next 30 months, there's a total of 14 comets that will impact the surface of Mars, and they could hit anywhere, including the populated dome cities. So there is a mention there that some level of terraforming had happened on Mars to where, as long as they have like a breathing apparatus, some oxygen, and basically cold weather gear, they could walk around outside on Mars and survive.
yeah,
So Mars is not where it is in the 24th century yet. There's still a lot going on, but without that Verteron array, like you mentioned, there's some significant potential implications here to include mass casualties if these asteroids come in and fall and hit some of these cities that have been built.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And how cool is it? And just in this episode, I just have to say this episode was so cool that we got Mars in here. We've got this Verteron array thing in here. We've got like this uh yeah, we've got this shuttlecraft that tails a comet like here with Captain Archer like leading this attack like away team. And you have RoboCop in this episode. This is a
Yeah.
great episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I love the homage to the first Mars rover because there's that little memorial
Yes.
site on
Thank
Mars
you.
and they have the actual rover there and a little plaque and everything. And I thought
Yeah.
that was really wonderful. So, Chris, does this episode to you really? I think what I like about it so much is that because it feels so close to where we're at now. Um, I mean, it's still a ways off, right? Like 100 years or whatever.
Hmm.
But you feel like, the Enterprise and where things are at in Enterprise, you could almost kind of reach out and just touch them a little bit. I know we're
Yeah.
still a long ways from the tech and everything, but this show has always been the closest to our timeline. And so it does feel somewhat realistic that some of these things could happen given the closeness of where things are at to where we're at.
Yeah, for sure. It does feel close, not only from a technological like standpoint, but from um, thematically and the ideologies that they're exploring standpoint. Because even though there's a lot of action and emotion uh, wrapped into this episode and drama, right? It totally explores this whole theme of xenophobia and then afraid of different cultures and ethnicities like other than your own, right? And that's what's just so cool that they're able to put that in this episode of Star Trek. And thank you for mentioning that rover, the Mars rover again, because I think that there's like a plaque to Carl Sagan on there as well,
Yeah.
like this monument there. So That was awesome, man.
It really was. And if you look at the way the current state of things in this episode in the Star Trek timeline, right? You think, okay, so we're about 100 years, little over 100 years or so. Well, more, 130 years, whatever. Yeah, about 130, 140 years, whatever. So we're over a century away from, century and a half away from these events. However, don't you feel that the way this episode portrays things, where you have a group or groups of humanity who are struggling significantly with xenophobia, and then another segment of the population who are fully embracing it. Don't you feel like that's something that could be a realistic thing now, right? If aliens showed up on Earth and they landed like the Vulcans did, and let's say they're friendly and they're not trying to take over the world like an Independence Day or whatever, uh, or something, whatever. But that we had an alien species land on this planet to greet us and they were friendly, don't you feel like there would be a huge divide amongst the human population on what to do and how to respond to all that? I think there would be. And I could absolutely see there being a group or groups of humanity who would be significantly scared of the aliens and therefore have some level of xenophobia.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely, there would be. Um, there's a small scene in this episode, to kind of play even more on like these themes of what you just said, between Trip and his captor, one of his guards captors, and I don't remember the name, but Trip is working on like trying to do those modifications to the Verteron array to make it a weapon system. And
Yeah.
so there's a dialogue between his captor and Trip, and Trip is like, why do you hate like Vulcans so much? And they're exploring that. And then his captor says something on um he blames the Vulcans for not doing first contact earlier, because he says if first contact would have been earlier, then we wouldn't have had World War III,
Yeah.
because they would have come and they would have, they would have been able to present that. But that's the kind of thing, like, right, when you think about the just that logic, like just twisting that a little bit, you can really pervert these kind of modes of thinking, right? Like
Yeah.
going, no, you can't absolve people from having accountability for their own actions. Like you have to have that too, right? People have to have accountability and agency on their own action and can't just rely on others to shape or modify their behavior. So I thought like that was interesting. That's just a really simple thing. Like, yeah, you can really pervert different ways of thinking. So
That's
yeah,
absolutely true. And a very good point you make there, Chris. A very important scene, I think, because what that
yeah.
does is it backs up this idea of, these members of Terra Prime, especially at the top of the organization, if you want to call it that, uh, are very prone to deflecting blame.
Hmm.
So basically this guy's saying, well, it's the Vulcans' fault we had World War III because they knew we were down here. They could have stopped it. Maybe it wouldn't have happened or whatever. So he's blaming the Vulcans. Like, no, it was humanity's fault for World War
Yeah.
Three. That was the Vulcans didn't start the war. The humanity started the war and killed a lot of its own people. The Vulcans didn't interfere because humanity had not had warp drive technology yet. And so the Vulcans were exercising some level of restraint similar to the Prime Directive that
Yeah.
is established later on, right, by the Federation, um, or by Starfleet. Uh, so that's very interesting. Now, that being said, we do know that the Vulcans have visited Earth prior to World War III, right? We know Kirk and Spock visit in the Depression era in the City on the Edge of Forever. We know that T'Pol visited in Carbon Creek in an episode of Enterprise, which is a wonderful, wonderful episode. Certainly an episode that'd be fun to talk about one day. But so we know the Vulcans have visited incognito, but they have not made official first contact. And to sit there and deflect it and shift blame to the Vulcans for the World War is pretty absurd to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. Completely agree.
Now, that being said, Chris, I think it's important as we see the episode moving forward that Section 31 comes in on a foggy night in San Francisco when Reed is sent to meet up again with Section 31 and the Agent Harris that we have met across multiple episodes of Enterprise in a dark alleyway, which is sounds about right. And basically, he's trying to get more information on Mars and what is possible and what they can do.
Yeah, and this what a perfect setting, like this foggy, like dark kind of alleyway-esque in San Francisco. And there's Agent Harris, and you can just picture Agent Harris totally as a Section 131 agent. I mean, so can you with Malcolm, I think. Malcolm is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
so much a Section 31 like agent. Like what I liked about this scene was so I mean Malcolm's coming to him because they need help on how can they access getting to Mars, getting to be able to kind of access divert on our way without Peter Willer's character Paxton like stopping them, like seeing them and kind of destroying them, right? So Harris just happens is able to share like some intelligence that they've gathered, some knowledge that they've gathered where like, hey, here's some potential weaknesses in the sensor grid like on Mars and you could ex potentially like exploit that so that your team can go in and go in there and do what it needs to do. I really like that exchange between Malcolm and Harris because Harris seems like he's a good guy. I think Harris is a good guy. He came across as, well-intentioned in this episode. And then he's like, he wants to help Malcolm. And he's like, yeah, and if Malcolm, when you're done with this job, just come on over. Um, I don't recall that Malcolm said no. I
He
don't
did. He
recall that
didn't.
he didn't.
Yeah, no, he
Okay.
didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's still in Malcolm's like consideration. I mean, I liked it at the end where like Harris wishes Malcolm good luck and they shake hands right there. But that is like that scene just feels like this really great spy movie scene like that's well placed and you just have this operative like working in the shadows that is able to give some information to help Malcolm and the Captain Archer out on their mission. So it was great.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned this earlier when we first started talking about this episode that of all the Section 31 episodes that we have watched up to this point, and I think that this will even include the movie when we talk about that in the next episode, this to me is where I think Section 31 is the most different than what we've seen, right? And that is that Section 31 is in our eyes, of the audience, is doing what we would say is the right thing, right? They're giving this information to help stop something from happening. It doesn't appear as though Harris, as a representative of Section 31, is doing this from his own best interest or necessarily from Section 31's best interest. However, I think Section 31's best interest is to stop an attack and on Earth from
Yeah, yeah.
of the Verderon array on Mars destroying, Starfleet headquarters. I mean, that to me screams, "Hey, Section 31, where are you? This is kind of in your lane of protecting, right, Starfleet and protecting the Federation, which doesn't exist yet." Um, but it does come across a little bit like Section 31's more. Uh, I guess doing the right thing versus doing what serves their own best interests.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I
it's a
agree.
much different point of view from Section 31 than what I think we've seen so far.
Hmm. Yeah, I think when I think about the DS9 Section 31 focused episodes with Sloane, um I mean, Sloane comes across to me as an individual like he was conflicted. He wants to do the right thing. The right thing was, kind of against a lot of the codes and kind of moral codes in Starfleet. Um, but I feel that I can connect the Section 31 that is in DS9 and I can connect the Section 31 that is portrayed in Enterprise together as the same organization, and I can see the evolution there from the Enterprise version of Section 31 through the DS9 version of Section 31. I can see this that kind of through line evolution on how that comes to be. They're similar enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree on that one for sure. I was just thinking about this. So if you remember in Voyager, there was that character, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, that character who was sending secret messages to Seska off ship.
Yeah.
And he was doing it in a very squirrely way, and he was caught, and very traitorous, right? So how cool would that have been if the first thing that this character did, if we met him in the pilot episode of Voyager Caretaker, and when they were in the Badlands before they get thrown into the Delta Quadrant, and they're in the Badlands, and he's sending secret messages to Section
Hmm.
31. That would have been cool because then it would have made sense, like, oh, this guy's a Section 31 operative. He's doing some kind of secret communications with Seska. I wonder if there's more to it than just he I think him and Seska kind of had a thing for each other, maybe,
Yeah.
or he thought she did or something, if I remember correctly. And so he's sending her information and these secret transmissions. And it would have been kind of cool to have that in the back of the mind of the audience to say, oh, this guy's working for Section 31. I wonder if he's still carrying out some sort of Section 31 type mission, or maybe Seska was transformed visually to look Bajoran because that was a Section 31. They got involved in that somehow, and it would have been this cool kind of like super secret undertone in Voyager. I know they didn't do that, but that would have been really cool and filled kind of a gap, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That would have been cool to do. Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Ah.
So, without Harris's help, however, I don't think the Enterprise would have come to the decision that they did. I don't think Archer and his crew would have been able to do what they did without the help of Section 31. And it's interesting that Reed tells the agent Harris that if this coalition is formed, which is going to be the Federation, the Enterprise might be busier than ever, and it's going to likely be the last time they see each other. But Harris
Hmm.
does wish him good wishes, or gives him good wishes, as they depart. And I found that fascinating. Harris carried himself a little differently in this episode than the previous ones. But even though this isn't like solely based around Section 31 this episode, and neither was Demons, the undertone, the underline of what Section 31 does and how they help and what they're a part of really plays a key role into ensuring that they can stop Paxton from doing what he wants to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think Harris carried himself. I was thinking about how did he carry himself? Maybe he carried himself a little bit more. See if you agree with this. Humble, like in
Mm.
his interaction with Malcolm. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
humble, and I feel a little bit too like he kind of carried himself a little bit more, almost kind of like Reed's friend, almost
Yes.
like what he was doing when they meet up in San Francisco.
Yes.
The vibe that I felt with him and Reed felt more of kind of sort of like colleague friends than it did Reed being recruited by Section 31 to do their bidding.
Yes. It
You
was
know
a
what I
much
mean?
softer touch, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think this was the most different way we've seen a Section 31 agent than we had at any point thus far.
Hmm. Yeah, it
So
was
I
good.
thought that was unique and very interesting how they left that exchange. And I do think if Enterprise had continued, if it had gotten 7 seasons, or if it had gotten other seasons, even if it got 2 more seasons, right? I really do think there would have been many more opportunities that they could have brought Section 31 in,
Hmm.
or had Malcolm Reed working with Section 31. And this is the last episode before the season finale. So they part ways, and you're never going to see Harris again, at least
Yeah.
in Enterprise, because Enterprise ends. But if they had known it was going to go on, I kind of wonder what the interaction would have been like, and would we have gotten more interactions? Because I really think they could have done a lot with Section 31 in Enterprise had it continued.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It would have been fascinating, to coin Spock's term,
Yeah,
fascinating to to see what other avenues they could have explored and paths they could have explored with
yeah.
Section 31 in Enterprise.
That's
Yeah.
that that's really true. And uh I will say that there was one thing in this episode that I found from I guess, a logic perspective that didn't make sense to me.
Hmm.
So when they're on Shuttle Pod 1 and you have Archer and Reed and Mayweather and Dr. Phlox, and I found it hilarious that Reed needed the vomit bag.
Yes. So
And
talk
I
to you
mean,
about that. Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Phlox handed the bag, was rocking back and forth. I'm like, wait a second. He's been on the board the Enterprise, and like he's this, he's a pretty tough guy, and he couldn't handle a little bit of shaking and rocking of the shuttle, but whatever. But what I found that was a little bit not believable was that the shuttle pod was flying into the tail of the comet, and it was getting the crap beat out of it, and it really would have, I think it would have gotten the crap beat out of it even more. But you're telling me it was flying through the tail with all that debris and everything everywhere, and the shuttle wasn't severely damaged or even destroyed? I mean, I don't think there's any shields on those shuttles at that particular moment, this particular period of time.
Yeah.
And the material that they used to make the shuttle, it was easily, there was a panel below, fired. They fired a
Uh,
panel off on that, and there was damage. So if a phaser blast could damage it that easily, huge chunks of ice and rock didn't basically destroy the whole thing. I don't know.
yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
that part made no sense.
Yeah. I get you. I get
I
you.
get it has like
Yeah.
all the main characters and the captain on. They're not going to kill off everybody, but I kind of felt like, well, you know, I don't think the shuttle would have actually survived in real life, but
Yeah, I get you. And the comet was big comet, man. It
yeah,
was like a big comet.
yeah,
Yeah, you see the image of Shuttle Pod 1, like when it's back in the bay in the Enterprise, and Mayweather is like, Mayweather is looking at it and like, hey, how did I lose like control? It's where they find that it was sabotaged, and it's just totally dented like everywhere, like it's like a beat up shuttle. So I thought, yeah, that was cool to see. So I'm glad you brought up the part um, of of Malcolm throwing up right there, because it's just like really quick scene, but it was funny,
yeah.
right? So Mayweather goes, "Oh yeah, I lost the inertial dampeners, or the inertial dampeners are going off," and you get Phlox handing him the barf bag, and then like a later scene, you see Malcolm like handing the barf
And
bag back to
Phlox is
Phlox.
like, ugh.
Yeah, yeah. So that was funny.
It
Um,
was funny, but I don't know that I would believe it that much because Reed's been in space long
Reed's
enough.
been in space.
I don't
Yeah,
feel like this shuttle pod ride would have made him that sick, honestly. But it was
yeah.
funny and very well played.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Um, this episode had really great moments with so many of the characters. So many of them. I mean, Mayweather was featured in a really good way with his relationship with that Starfleet
Yeah, Gannett,
intelligence.
I think was her
Gannett?
name.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a reporter, but then we
Yeah.
find out she's part of Starfleet intelligence. He
Yeah.
he was thinking she was a Terra Prime operative,
That's
and that's
right.
and so was the crew, and that's why she was in the holding cell. But then she reveals to Mayweather that she was Starfleet intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Yoshi had some great moments in there, right? Where she's in command of the Enterprise while Archer is on Mars, doing his mission, and she's getting all sorts of pressure from he's not the president, but he's
No,
the
he's the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Hoshi carried herself really
Yeah.
wonderfully in that.
Yeah.
I mean, she kind of put him in the corner and was like, "No, no, just stop. Like
Hmm.
I'm running the show here." I thought that was a great thing. They showed her stepping up and showing a significant level of confidence because she, for a lot of the show, wasn't confident
Yeah.
in her abilities, even though as an audience we knew her abilities were fantastic. But she had to gain and build that confidence over time, and it is on full display here.
Yeah, and I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And of course, Trip and T'Pol had great moments in there because they're they have a daughter, the clone daughter, so that's that complete drama that's associated with all that. Some fantastic things with them, and then even Dr. Phlox, like I thought he had a great moment there when he expresses to the captain where he says, "Hey, I thought I was going to take a break from family when I left Denobula because family's so complicated, but then here I am. No, I didn't take a break from family. I've got this whole other family. And so, he's really
Yeah.
affected by uh, the events that happen, is really overcome by emotion right there. And Captain Archer just had this incredible moment. Um,
His speech.
his speech was
Yeah.
incredible. I was like, wow, so
Yeah.
many great moments in this episode.
Archer's an explorer, but by the end of this episode and the series finale, you realize Archer's not just an explorer, he's a diplomat. And he's a
Hmm.
very good diplomat at that, actually. And I think that's learned over the time of being out in space and exploring and interacting with new species and first contacts and so forth. Um, Really quickly, Chris, I want to go back to what you were talking about with
Yeah,
Dr. Phlox,
yeah.
because there's a line when I watched this episode, there was a line that really pulled on my heartstrings when he mentioned when he's talking about the fact that there's nothing he could do for T'Pol and Trip's baby. And he
Mm,
said, about it being family and everything like that. And he said, he thought of the child as like one of his own.
mm, mm.
And that was, and you could see the emotion in Phlox. I thought John Billingsley played that so incredibly, so wonderfully. The sensitivity and the soft touch that he had when he was delivering those lines and in that scene was really, really fantastic. And I'm glad you brought up this idea about all these amazing moments for these characters because it's really wonderful that they got these leading
Yeah.
into the series finale and the last that we were going to see of them. But you're right. I mean, these moments that we see in this episode from these characters are just incredible.
They are. They're just like they are standout fantastic. Um, and like even like one of the minor characters, like on Earth, after Captain Archer has kind of he's expressed and he gave his monologue. Um, the Vulcan ambassador, his name is right on the top of my mind.
Oh,
Um,
so is it Saval?
Saval.
Saval, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he doesn't even have to say anything, but just the fact like he stands up and like celebrates like
and he
Captain
claps.
Archer and he
Yeah,
claps. Like,
yeah.
man, that is just absolutely fantastic. Just stand out. And then, I mean, all of this, and you still have RoboCop in there. You still have like Peter Weller in there in there talking, which is great.
Yeah. I agree. I think that honestly, like if we got rid of the hot, trashy garbage that was the series finale,
Hmm.
I mean, there's some good moments in it, but in
Yeah.
general, this two-parter could have been a series finale.
Yeah.
And they could have wrapped the show up on this episode, on this two-part episode, and
Yes.
added a little bit more at the end to make it, officially a series finale. But this could have been a great series finale because you think about it, right? The Enterprise crews come home, they're defending Earth from this crazed xenophobist. They're standing up for what's right. Yeah, so even if they added a scene at the end of this, after all this is wrapped up in Terra Prime, where the Federation Charter is signed, Archer had given his speech that's bringing these worlds together that eventually, you know, are a part of this coalition that are the founding planets of the Federation. All of these things could have happened, and it would have been a fantastic two-part series finale. I mean, the way that they do it, but then they went to the series finale and had to throw that steaming pile of dog poo in there. Again, there was a few things that are good about the series finale, but a lot of it people were really disgusted by and still are to this day the way they did that. But um, yeah, this was a fantastic episode. Um, I like the fact that so there is a mention in here because of what uh Trip does. The shot from the Verteron array actually hits the ocean and doesn't hit anything, so that's good. It was put off on there due to what Tucker was able to do to prevent it
Yeah.
actually hitting Starfleet headquarters and so forth. Um, but it it's amazing what you watch with Trip, knowing that he's got this child and knowing what he has to do, knowing he's putting his life on the line by potentially sabotaging this thing. But he stands up against this guy and is basically like, yeah, you can kill me, but there's no way I'm going to actually help you build this weapon. and help you set this weapon apart. So I thought that was really important. But there were a lot of lines in here that the different crew members said that I thought were really important for the development and finalization of their characters.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. And I was thinking the same thing about this as a prospective good series finale. On that, this would have been a great series finale. You had uh, Captain Archer's speech was just brilliant, like at the end. And you have all the founding races of the Federation like in that room, and then when he starts talking about being an explorer, but then he says, the most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond the next star, but they are like within everyone, and then woven into the fabric that binds everyone together with each other. That is the type of beautiful, like prose, just worthy of being in this series finale because um, wow. I just say like wow. That like just captures like the spirit of Enterprise and it's so good. I was thinking about so I love the theme song of Enterprise. So I love that. My wife doesn't like it, but I love that theme song of Enterprise. But I was watching the opening of this series Enterprise, listening to the theme song and listening to that idea of like exploration and ambition and what that means, and then connecting all to this just beautiful speech that Captain Archer gives, and I thought, wow, that is so like wonderful to do. That connects it like wholly as a circle, and that's such a beautiful theme. So this would have been such a beautiful like series finale. They
It
tie,
is.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it would have been. And can we go back really quickly to what
yeah,
Archer was talking about, Chris? Because
yes,
the quote leading up to what you mentioned about where he says the
hmm
most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond the next star. I want to kind of read this really quickly, where
yeah,
he says, up until about 100 years ago, there was one question that burned in every human that made us study the stars and dream of traveling to them. Are we alone? Our generation is privileged to know the answer to that question. We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon and beyond our own shores. And then he adds the rest of that piece. That speech was so incredibly well written and well delivered by Scott Bakula, because that speech sums up Star Trek, right? I mean, it sums up their crew. It sums up humanity, especially at this particular point in time. This idea of discovery and exploration. I mean, it is the foundation of Star Trek as a franchise.
hmm yeah. I think I in my heart, for me, this is the series finale, like in my heart.
Mm.
I think that does it justice. I think it, it- tweaking it, I mean, maybe it's like you were saying, like some minor tweaks at the end would have could have made it even more spectacular. But
Yeah.
but in my heart, this serves so wonderfully as the series finale. They even tie the idea of now that I think about this more, to Paul's and Tripp's daughter, like she's named Elizabeth, right? After Tripp's sister. And
Yeah.
so this is Tripp's sister was killed from an from an event from a hostile alien species, right? And so that happened. Tripp kind of undergoes that and has to deal with that transformation as a human being. And then the new life um formed in this baby from T'Pol and Trip's like genetic code. So now it's a mix of like of human and alien like and Vulcan like genetic code. But just that idea that um it's named Elizabeth, not only to honor like Trip and Trip's sister, but to honor this idea of like, hey, the the union of like humanity and other extraterrestrial species uh is the natural course of change, like T'Pol
Mhm.
says earlier, right? She goes, no, thing is change. To evolve is change. That happens. I thought was just a beautiful thing. Um, Originally when I watched this episode the first time, I was really conflicted about Elizabeth not surviving like as the baby.
Yeah.
I felt really bad. I was like, okay, the baby doesn't survive. How do I feel about this? I think I would have liked it more like if the baby lived. But um looking at this the second time and then seeing that outcome of Elizabeth not surviving as a baby, and then coming back to around it on the scene between T'Pol and Trip, and then how they respond and how they behave, right? Because Trip comes in to that room and he's so distraught. You see T'Pol like she's distraught as well in her own way, but you see this this incredible interaction between them where Trip, explains, hey, that maybe our we are like genetically compatible. Like he shares what Phlox had learned, and then and we can like be compatible. I think that knowledge, that scene, um, was necessary, and then that was incredible because that kind of reinforced the idea like, hey, change and integration is important, and you see like T'Pol grab like Trip's hand and hold his hand. And I think that that was beautiful. That wouldn't have been there, right, if if Elizabeth would have survived as a
Yeah.
character. Um,
That
so
was a
what? Yeah.
really, really powerful scene.
Hmm.
That end scene, the way the episode ends with that was so powerful. I mean, Trip is a mess, T'Pol's a mess, and it's a huge arc from the beginning of the series when Trip and T'Pol first meet. She won't shake his hand, and now they end with her grabbing and holding his hand as they're
Hmm.
both upset over the whole thing. And I'm glad that they made the point where Phlox had mentioned to Trip that or Trip mentions that Phlox had told him that there was a defect or a flaw in the cloning process, and that there is nothing scientifically that shows that humans and Vulcans can't be reproduce. I mean, we know that because Spock is half human, half Vulcan, right? And they would have known that. Spock's father would have known that when he married his human wife, right? That they were compatible and they could have kids. That probably would have learned it from this type of event here. So that final scene was really moving, really touching, um, and I think created a huge bond between T'Pol and Arch or T'Pol and Arch, T'Pol and Trip that wasn't maybe fully there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a wonderful
Beautiful.
episode. Section 31, while it wasn't in the absolute forefront of the episode, it played a critical role in the success of them stopping Paxton and his minions, part of Terra Prime, and the role that Section 31 played, even leading up to Terra Prime and Demons, was also important. The role they played in the background. So I do think that Section 31 had a large impact on these episodes. It just wasn't, mentioned throughout the entire episode.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think well fitting for this one.
Yeah.
Just like it should be. That's what Suction 31 is.
Yeah, and well, what's interesting too, Chris, is that Section 31 can literally do this one little thing and then step back and watch things play out. I mean, that's how big of an impact that Section 31 has on different events in time. That they're able to just drop something in, step back, and go, okay, let's see what happens. Now, the role Section 31 played in this two-parter was much different because what we saw in DS9 and especially was that Section 31 was not afraid to assassinate people and take people out if it meant that it did and had a certain effect on things that went the way that Section 31 wanted to, kind of like Section 31 was the puppet master and
Yeah.
they had their agents as puppets and they were running around doing things and so forth. This they played a little bit of a different role here in this two-parter, but it goes to show you the level of influence that Section 31 has amongst so many different events in on the timeline and how long Section 31 has had an influence within the Federation, eventually the Federation and Starfleet.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree.
So,
I'm glad we
yeah,
watched this episode again, for
yeah,
sure. Yeah,
me too.
this is really a treasure of an episode, I believe.
It really is. It really is. And okay, well, you ready? Are you ready? Audience, are you ready? We've been building this up for a long time this watch and discussion of the Section 31 movie. And we are going to do that on the next episode here on the Random Redshirt podcast. So, Chris, are you mentally prepared for this episode?
No.
No. Well, we have had a while to prepare mentally, and I tried to prepare for this. I even remember clicking the play button to watch the movie, and I'm like, all right, here goes nothing. And it was all downhill from there. But yeah, we're going to get into all of that and more on the next episode of the Random Redshirt podcast as we discuss the Section 31 movie starring Michelle Yeoh, who is an amazing actress, by the way. I have nothing against her or her role, but we will talk about the movie and our thoughts. And we'll mention before we jump into it, we will mention some expectations and things we were hoping to see in the movie before we get into it. But this wraps up the legacy episodes of Section 31 in Star Trek as we prepare to move into the movie that had everybody talking for the last since it came out. Lots of people that we've heard from that have mentioned to us what they thought about the movie, and we'll get to all that and more. So, all right, Chris, let's do this. Section 31 movie coming on the next episode of the Random Redshirt podcast. So, thank you everybody as always for watching and listening all over the globe and the interwebs. Be sure to go on Facebook and Instagram and check us out there. You can subscribe and like and follow and all that stuff on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And we also have an audio side on your favorite podcast platform. So, all right, Chris, you ready for this? Let's do it.
Sounds great, my friend.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody, take care. And we'll catch you next time on a special episode of the Random Redshirt podcast where we finally dive into the Section 31 episode. Take care, everybody.